Ann, what are you looking for?
Do you have the card?
I just started looking around here. I was like, I wonder if I have what she needs. I didn't know it existed, but there it was. Okay. Well, it looks like we are on the air, so it is 8:30 on July 5th. I will call the regular meeting of the Environment and Land Use Committee to order. Roll call of committee members: Kellen Nelson,
Randy Severson,
Stacy Klein.
Dave Larson.
Tony Munson.
Andy Todd.
Tom Waldera.
and staff.
Mark Carlson.
Mike Kornman.
I certify that open meeting law requirements have been met with proper posting. We have a 17-item agenda. I'd entertain a motion.
Second.
Motion to approve Larson, second by Munson. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. Has everyone had a chance to read through our June 8th regular meeting minutes? Any corrections or additions? Motion to approve Waldera. Second by Todd. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. At this time, it is 8:31, and I will call the public hearing to order. This is for a land use change rezone from exclusive Ag 2, EA2 to commercial for William and Martha Lambright. Randy, would you read the public hearing notice?
Yes. There will be a public hearing before the Trempealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. in the County Boardroom of the Courthouse, 36245 Main Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose is a land use change or rezone from exclusive Ag 2 to commercial on approximately .61 acres, more or less, to add more commercially zoned land to erect a showroom and office building. Description as follows. Hearing is requested by William Lambright and Martha Lambright, petitioner, landowner, Blair, Wisconsin. Trumpealeau County invites you to join this meeting as follows. To provide public comment to these hearings, please call 715-538-1894. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Verge Gamroth with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916 or email at verge.gamroth@countytrempealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comment to the Department of Land Management, P.O. Box 67, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, or email to Verge once again. All written comments must be received by July 3rd, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author and the request that the letter be read at a particular meeting date. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Verge Gamroth of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916. Sincerely, Verge Gamroth, zoning technician.
Thank you, Randy. Next, Verge, could you give us an overview of our hearing?
Okay, I don't see William and Martha here. As was mentioned in the notice, they wanted to rezone an additional .61 acres from EA2 to commercial. This property had previously had the trust business that got moved to
53.
53.
Yeah.
So he wants to add on a commercial or an office space and lumber for the lumber yard that's going to be there. He wants to add on to the south side of the business, of the building, which means that he has to have more zoned land. This was published in the newspaper 2 consecutive weeks, 10 days prior to the hearing on June 12th and June 19th. Letters were sent to the adjoiners. I didn't receive any correspondence, and I did check my email this morning. I do have a letter from the town, and if approved, this will go to full county board on July 17th.
Okay. If anyone in the public would like to offer public comment on this, they should call 715-538-1894. And we have nobody here to testify on this, as far as I can tell.
William and Mary Amish. Should I go see if they're upstairs or?
Well, you can, yeah, I guess. I
You can,
didn't
then-
see him anywhere.
Okay. You said you have a letter from the town. Would like to hear
Yes,
that.
I have a letter from the town of Preston dated April 10th regarding Willie Lambright. The town board of the town of Preston received a request from Willie Lambright to rezone his property at N 34314 County Road South, S. Blair, from residential to commercial. The town of Preston Board of Supervisors at their April 9th, 2023 board meeting passed a motion in favor of his request. The vote was 2-0 in favor of this motion.
Okay. If anyone wishes to comment from home, they can call 715-538-1894. Not a lot of questions, but once again, if anyone wishes to offer any public comment, call 715-538-1894. And find anyone up there, Mark? All clear, huh? At this point, I am going to close the public hearing at 8:36 and call for a motion from the committee.
Motion to approve the application.
Move to approve Larson, second by Todd. Any discussion? So this is the former trust shop,
Right.
future lumberyard? Okay. Any discussion? Hearing none? I'll call for a vote. All in favor of approving this rezone, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. And that will move to full county board in July here.
July 17th, yeah, I'll
Okay.
have a paper for you to sign.
Sounds good.
Resolution.
Thank you. Our next public hearing is for, I'll call the order at 8:37. This is for a land use change rezone from EA2 to commercial for Austin E. Bowman. Randy, could you read our public hearing notice?
There will be a public hearing before the Trumpealeau County Environment and Land Use Committee on Wednesday, July 5th, 2023 at 8:35 a.m. in the County Board Room of the Courthouse, 36245 Main Street, Whitehall, Wisconsin. The purpose of the land use change rezone is from exclusive Ag 2 to commercial on approximately 3.61 acres more or less to relocate a current automotive light truck repair business. It's part of the southeast one quarter of the northwest one quarter and part of the northeast one quarter of the southwest one quarter, north and west of US Highway 10 and south of Alvestad Road, all in Section 1, Township 24 North, Range 7 West, Town of Sumner, Trumpealeau County, Wisconsin. Hearing is requested by Austin E. Bowman, petitioner landowner, Osseo, Wisconsin. Trumpealeau County invites you to join this meeting as follows. To provide public comment on these hearings, please call 715-538-1894. Your attendance and comments are encouraged at this hearing. If you are unable to attend and have any questions, please call Verge Gamrath with the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916 or email at verge.gamrath@county.trumpealeau.wisconsin.us. If you are unable to attend and desire to submit a written comment, please send your written comment to the Department of Land Management, P.O. Box 67, Whitehall, Wisconsin, 54773, or email to Verge. All written comments must be received by July 3rd, 2023 at 4:30 p.m. Please know that written comments will be read at the public hearing up to 250 words. All written comments must include the name and address of its author and the request that the letter be read at a particular meeting date. Any special interest groups or expert witnesses will be allowed 20 minutes to give a presentation and must register at least 1 week prior to the meeting date by calling Verge Gamreth of the Department of Land Management at 715-538-1916. Sincerely, Verge Gamreth, zoning technician.
Thank you, Randy. If anyone wishes to call and testify or make comment on this, please call 715-538-1894. Verge, could you give a overview of our hearing today?
Sure. First, I'd like to acknowledge Austin, who's here with us. You want to have a seat at the table there? Okay, we're going to possibly rezone 3.61 acres to commercial to relocate an existing automotive business, repair business, which I'll let Austin tell you more about that. Based on our table of uses, I would call this a general service business, and that's a permitted use in commercial. So that's why we chose for him to rezone, and also other businesses that were of the same type were required to rezone. There is commercial across the road, and this particular parcel is between two roads, as you saw, Alvested Road and Highway 10. There is commercial across the street, or a road from that. It's my understanding he doesn't have any intent to build a house there. Okay. This rezone was published in the newspaper on June 12th and June 19th. Letters were sent to all adjoiners. I don't have any correspondence from anyone. I do have a letter from the town, and if approved, this would go to full county board on July 17th also. And I don't know if Austin has anything he wants to add.
Okay. All right, thanks, Austin. If anyone at home would like to comment, please call 715-538-1894. And nobody here to testify on this, I don't think.
Are you going to use the existing field road, which would be on state property, or are you going to move the driveway?
So the field access, that's on Alvested?
Yep.
State. So where do you suggest I put?
That I would say you'd probably have to call the highway department. You have 400 feet of visible frontage on either direction, so you're qualified there, but I would say you'd probably have to call the county highway department in case you'd have to put in a culvert.
Which there is actually a culvert in that driveway. I was hoping to use what I have. but
Okay.
You may be able to, but
You might
he's-
be able to, but I mean,
Yeah.
that's
it's
just,
in a pretty good spot.
you will just want to check with the highway department.
because I would assume, if some field driveways are only 10 feet wide, if you want a commercial lot, you might need to make it 40 feet if you're going to bring semis in or whatever, you may need to extend that. And depending on the culvert size, I know I put one in, they required a 24-inch culvert as a standard minimum now, just to be sure.
Yep, just make sure you don't have any bad surprises later on.
Right.
Just
I
A phone
mean,
call
when
to
you're-
them now will get you in the right direction.
Yep, when you're doing it now, but yeah,
Yep.
that field driveway's in state-owned land, I see, and I was just wondering if you needed to move it or not, but
So if I move it on your map, can you see if it goes east, does that come off of the state owned?
No,
Or is that full
I
front?
think it's all state-owned
it
there.
looks like it's all state-owned land here. So I don't know what the process would be there, if he'd have to go, if he's grandfathered in or not. Very good question, I know.
It's a great question.
No, I guess I didn't know, so it'd be nice to see.
I don't,
the map.
before you do a lot of
Yeah.
spending money, I get my paper details in line, because I don't believe you could come off Highway 10 very easily.
No,
No.
I don't think I'd want to anyway.
No.
Dangerous.
But I mean, I would say the highway department would probably be your best bet.
Yep,
They would help you. They understand the rules. They know what you can and cannot do there.
yep. Once again, if anyone is at home would like to offer a comment, call 715-538-1894. And Verge, you have a letter from the town. Would you read it for us?
Yes, I have a letter dated March 28th, 2023, from the town of Sumner. Dear Sir, at our last board meeting, we had a request from Austin Bauman to rezone a parcel of land from ag to commercial on Alvested Road to build a building for a repair business. John moved to approve the rezone. Roger seconded the motion. Motion carried. Sincerely, Jane Brown, clerk.
Okay, thank you, Verge. And after not hearing the phone ring for a few minutes, I am going to close public comment.
Mr. Chair,
Oh,
I just had one, and I don't know if it's now or
we'll
later.
we'll get into
either one.
discussion yet.
But I was just, on the application, there's 3.61 acres, and then there's a parentheses note from the real property lister that with a different number.
Well,
So why wouldn't that number to get changed to the official
well,
number?
because I didn't want to alter his application. I wanted to leave it, and that's why I put on there
More or less?
more or less, yes.
Okay.
So, but it will go by the description
Okay.
that includes everything, that part of the northeast and of the southwest and that part of the southeast of the northwest of Section 1 that lies north and west of Highway 10 and south of Alvested Road. And then it says containing 3.61 acres, more or less.
At this point, I'm going to close public comment at 8:45 and call for a motion. Motion to approve Klein. Second by Larson. Any discussion from the committee, questions beyond what we've had? Hearing none, I will call the vote. All in favor of approving this rezone, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried, and we will send this to full county board.
Okay.
So, thinking
Okay. I don't know if you want to sign these now or.
we can start. So next thing on our agenda, we have a, yeah, I figured seeing them just come in. Presentation by Ann from Land Records. So we will have a presentation from Ann and Land Records on the surveyor contract,
The land information program.
land information program too. Okay.
Let me just get this set up.
Yeah, thank you.
First, do you have that map of that highway right over there?
Well,
Not this again.
I just have this. But isn't there a driveway gonna come in here?
The driveway's right there,
That's a town road.
so I should be good.
We should be- I mean, but if
Because
you.
I understood this area could be kind of a gray area, so I stayed over here. Yes, that would be my preference.
No,
Because I definitely don't want to play in this area.
yeah. I think you'll be fine here.
I think state touches on 10 and then going up here, you have to look at, so the DOT actually limits all the, that's why.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. It's technology for you.
I'm really good at flubbing these
I
up.
don't think there's a problem with him accessing the road, there's a road already there.
Yeah, no, I'm good, I got one of those. so.
Okay, but I would
Okay.
call them and just clear it.
You ready? Do you have notes to pull up yet?
I don't want my notes to show up.
Yeah, but he's county.
But I think this is the-
Talk to Kevin and then he'll direct you to the state.
Huh.
See you guys later.
Your notes aren't showing on the presentation screen. They might be showing for you though.
They're not showing for me.
Oh, they're not.
I need my notes.
Got it.
I need to be practiced. I'll get it though. That's not that. Did everyone have a good Fourth?
Yeah. Feels like Monday all over again.
Use prevent. Nothing like having 2 Mondays in 1 week.
Right? Who doesn't want that? I suppose technically it is better. I mean, 'cause it means you had a day off somewhere in there.
I took Monday off.
Unless you had a long weekend.
I had it all set up upstairs. Well, you guys can read my notes. I don't care. I'm here to just present on the land information program in Trempealeau County, and why there's certain departments that are so important to the land information program. Land information, do people know what land information is? Land information, now I can't see my notes. You guys can see them and I can't. Land information in GIS takes a database and it connects it to spatial information. The parcel number on your tax bill can be joined to the parcel map that shows your boundaries, and then you can get your tax and assessment information. It's important, it's central to county and municipal operations. In a rural county like Trempealeau County, we do a lot of the GIS work for our municipalities. And then it supports economic development, emergency planning, response, and a host of other citizen services. This one always gets me tongue-tied. The Wisconsin Land Information Program is administered by the Department of Administration. It provides over $1.3 million annually in public funding to Wisconsin counties for the modernization of land records.
So the modernization, so has Trempealeau County done it, or was that what the surveyor did, updating all the monuments and everything through the 2000s?
So what they consider modernization is making sure it's digital, you know, in the computer, and it is accessible on the internet, like a website.
For the public.
For the public. So when you ask about this, the surveyor information, that we have all the monuments updated and online with the tie sheets attached to it. So, and what modernization looks like in the future, I don't know. I mean, it changes yearly. And please ask questions whenever you want. The funding that we get is from the Registry of Deeds real estate document recording fees retained at the county level and grants awarded from the DOA. All 72 counties do have a land information program. And there's the history of it in Trempealeau County. So we've been working on this since 1990. In 2011, I did become the Land Records Modernization Coordinator. Here's some of the state statutes that go along with the Land Information Program. Real property listing and assessment management, land records modernization, coordination and storage of property survey records, land information officer duties, and then the Office of the County Surveyor. So, like I said, over 30 years ago, the Land Records Committee in Trempealeau County recognized the importance of building a foundation for our county parcel data set. That meant remonumentation would be the priority, so we were building it from the base up. That was completed in 2015. And then from there, we could do the sections and the quarter sections and the quarters. Does anyone have questions about remonumentation and what it is? And then from there, we could map all of our parcels. 33,338 parcels were mapped. We were one of the first rural counties to have this complete, and that's a big taking on. And that's all because they had the foresight ahead of time to do it right.
Where are those records kept now, Ann? The hard copies, or?
Hard copies are required by the county surveyor to be in the county surveyor's office.
So when that moves, there will be space, I assume, for those to be kept, I would assume?
If they were moved to the land records department, we would have ample space for records. We want them to be digitized too, but hard copies do have to be kept. And then after parcels, we could do more GIS layers, like school district boundaries, municipal and town layers, zoning and land use, and it goes on and on and on. But it's all based on boundaries. These boundaries equal that boundary, and excuse me. This is the Trempealeau County Land Information Program. It includes the real property lister, the register of deeds, the treasurer, the surveyor, and the land records department. And I'll just go through what each of those functions are within our program. The surveyor provides technical review of the CSMs and other maps of survey prior to recording. Maintains the PLS, geodetic control, maintains monuments. The county surveyor should be available to answer survey-related questions from the public, and it maintains a filing system for survey records. And then the surveyor would also collaborate with and advise the Land Information Office, real property lister on PLS and survey-related issues pertinent to our digital GIS mapping, parcel mapping. The Register of Deeds is able to tell who, what, and when about a property. The Register of Deeds records the time when, in effect, the public record is established. In legal terms, this important function is described as providing constructive notice for all the world to see the rights and interests that people have in real estate. For example, after a certified survey map is approved, reviewed, it would then go to the Registry of Deeds office and be recorded. And the real property lister. The real property lister duties are a very exacting technical task. In large part of it is coordinating glue that brings together various land functions into an end product that is usable by other agencies and the public. This function assimilates the information coming from the Register of Deeds, the surveying and mapping departments, along with the assessor and the treasurer functions, into a final accurate property listing. This listing is used as raw data for the assessment and taxation process, and therefore critical to the government using it. The treasurer. The county treasurer's office is thought of as the keeper of county funds and the tax collector. They administer the lottery and gaming credit, prepare and mail delinquent tax notices, prepare and mail postponed tax reminder notices, and collect property tax payments due by July 31st, right around the corner. And the Land Information Officer and the Land Records Department. A significant responsibility of the department is to make the land information available and usable to other public departments and the public. We make sure the most accurate land information while striving to advance GIS technology, promote interdepartment cooperation, and achieve its long-term goals. As the Land Information Office, as such, the Land Information Office coordinates with the real Register of Deeds, the real property lister, the surveyor, and the treasurer's office to continually update land information. We bring all the pieces of the puzzle together and make it into a smart map that end users can easily understand. On top of that, we do maintain other layers. We assign the 911 addresses. We maintain the web mapping sites, so this information is public. And then who benefits? Let's see if I can make this, well, I'm not gonna even try. The Land Information Program benefits various state agencies, local townships, villages, and cities, other Trempealeau County departments, local businesses, and most importantly, Trempealeau County current and future taxpayers. When a land information program works in cooperation with each other, we all benefit. And then I have the Land Information Council. The Land Information Council is required by the state and acts as an advisory committee to the offices that are part of the County Land Information Program. Positions are either required or have been included over time to make sure land records program serves the needs of the county departments, municipalities, and county taxpayers. We are all involved to make sure we have a successful land records program moving forward. So I have listed who's required by the state of Wisconsin, and then on top of that, we have added the Highway Department, the Department of Land Management, Sheriff's Office, Emergency Management. So we've added quite a few other departments to advise us on what projects we should be working on and where our money should be spent. Does anyone have questions?
Why is it important for Joe to review the CSMs prior to them being filed?
So,
Maybe Joe can answer.
well, no, let me think of the right way to say it. So you pay a county surveyor to do the research, find your boundaries, and turn in that CSM to the county surveyor. You want to make sure, it's like insurance for what you paid a county, or your surveyor to do.
Yeah. So if you went to a financial institution, say you're buying a piece of property, so is that what the title company does or whatever, then? They do the research through Joe, or how is that
No, a
all-
title company does it on their own.
Oh.
That's without a survey, though.
Correct.
So survey, you are insured, those are your boundaries, if your surveyor did it
You
correct.
request that on your own.
Yes, 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 yes.
And then, so, whatever surveyor you do, whoever it may be, they survey it, but Joe has the final say whether he accepts it or not,
Right,
correct?
and he'll find mistakes that
Yes, he
surveyors
will.
do.
I know that.
Yeah.
We've had that
There's a lot of
experience
red
in the
marks
town.
on those surveys, and then, once he accepts it, then it would be recorded, because that's a legal document.
Yes.
And you want that to be correct.
And thank you for the presentation. It takes me a little while to wrap my head around things sometimes. Would you be willing to share the PowerPoint via email, just so that I can look at it a little
Absolutely.
bit more closely and think about it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Oh, hi, Joe, I didn't know you were here. You probably could have answered that question.
So when you talk about saving the records, like the digital copies and then having a physical copy, then digitally it's kept for, like, so you can see the changes over time. So that's kept for however long it's been done.
For example, there's tie sheets that go with each monument, and so we have old ones, and then Joe has gone and did maintenance on them or something and made a new tie sheet that would show that correction or something like that. And then we know that it was at this point in time, it was like this, but then something had to be changed or corrected. So we would have that old one and the new one, because when we research property information, when we read a deed and make those boundaries on our parcel map, maybe we did it 10 years ago, but that monument, something happened. So we have to go back and say, 10 years ago, this is why we mapped it that way. But now we have this new information, we should revisit it and map it a new way. But it's important to have those historical documents. And we wouldn't override any of them.
Right, yeah. So then the historical ones are kept digitally, and then it's just the up-to-date ones that are physical copies?
It's
The
all
records?
paper.
Or it is all paper? Oh, okay.
We'd
Gotcha.
like to make sure because if we can attach some of that information to your parcel,
Mhm.
if we can digitize it and you can view it, then we're giving you all the more information. But we do need to have the hard copies
Okay.
as well.
Gotcha, okay, thanks.
Is any other questions for Ann or any of our land record staff?
When, let's see, county was GPS mapped back in the time, I know they started from the south and worked their way north, correct? Some property owners on the northern boundary said they lost a rod. Is that correct? Would anybody know that answer? Joe?
We started in the south end initially, and simultaneously, actually, within a month or so, we also started working on the north end. And that was because of development pressure out of La Crosse and Eau Claire. In other words, we had more of a call for surveys in those two areas of the county than we did, say, the center part, Hale, Arcadia, Ettrick. So that's why we started there. Now, Tony, I'm not sure about the rock thing.
Okay.
Um,
That's what the one party that's on the Eau Claire Trempealeau County line,
Mm-hmm.
they had a discrepancy there, whether it was through the deed recording or how.
Okay.
But he said that he figured out he lost a rod.
Yeah,
Full length on the northern end.
he lost a rod.
A rod,
A
16
rod,
feet.
a measurement of a rod.
Yep.
My thought on that would probably be that he thought he lost a rod.
Okay.
It may be a situation where we found a marker that was about 16 and a half feet off where he thought it should be.
Okay.
Something like that. It's quite common comment I get, how come I lost some property when my surveyor come out and surveyed it? And the reality is you didn't lose any property. It's just probably isn't where you thought it was. And so that's a fairly common comment.
Could any of that apply on how you started? You know, on the west side, my land lies on the west side of the county. I have 340s on the county line, not a single one of them an exact 40. Because when they did it, they started from the east and we got what was left in the end.
Well,
Chain got short on land.
when you're...
Or long. I've got 140 that's 42 and a half acres.
I get that, and the logic there is that, and I understand why you say that. The logic that you're talking about probably is that I bought 40, my deed says 40, how come I don't have 40? And if we kept laying 40s out based on that nomenclature from one direction to the end, eventually the last guy would get all the errors that all the surveying has been made over the last 150 years, and he'd have like maybe 10. There's, in fact, the area I live in Dunn County, a 800-foot mistake was made about 2 miles east of me in the original survey. It was 800 feet longer than what the survey called for. By the time they got to the end of the township, guess where that 800 feet was? These guys over here were 6 to 7 acres short of what they thought they had. This guy got more, these people got less. The logic behind the original government survey is that once those corners are set, monumented, and accepted by the Attorney General, or excuse me, the Surveyor General, and that was a federal position at the time, they hold. It doesn't matter if there's an 800-foot mistake. It doesn't matter if there's an 800-foot mistake. They hold. So at the end of the day, when we come back and do remonumentation, it's extremely important that we set those corners back where they were originally set from the original government survey. Obviously, that presents some challenges. Takes time, takes a lot of effort, and that's what we did in the course of Trempealeau County. So when there's a certain procedure that the federal and state government requires to subdivide a section. In a perfect world, in 1850, it was square for the most part, 2640 distances, everything were 40s for the most part, but we come back and we do more accurate measurements on those corners that we've restored and found from the original survey. They're no longer 2640. They're no longer 90-degree angles. Some of them are more, some are less. We are fortunate in Trempealeau County, we don't normally have, or haven't seen that 800-foot mistake that Dunn County has seen, and some of the other counties have seen. They did a pretty good job in Trempealeau County originally. But can you imagine the chaos that would ensue if every time we did another survey, we made your 40 exactly 40? All your improvements would shift every time we got a new measurement style, a new measurement technique. 1850s, they were using a chain and compass. 1900s, they were using a transit and tape. Late 60s, early 70s, they were using electronic measuring devices and theodolites. Every time we changed equipment styles and technology, the measurements got more accurate. What the accuracy standards in 1845 were 1 chain per mile, 66 feet per mile. Now we're like this, accuracy standards. We use GPS, we can repeat our measurements usually within about an inch. Back then, you get 3 surveyors in 1850 that measured the same mile. It all depended on the expertise of the people who were measuring. And that's why the federal government said, once those corners are adopted and accepted, they stay. And that's why it's extremely important that we don't just go out willy-nilly and start measuring and plopping corners in the ground without looking for that original evidence. It affects everybody's boundaries one way or another.
So now those new corner sections are with a stake or a metal instead of a wood stick that rotted,
Right.
and you looked for the, so they are theoretically supposed to last a lifetime or longer, or what? How?
Well, it would be good if they did. They last a lot longer than wood. Reality, a stone marker would probably be one of the better markers.
Okay.
And they recognize that, well, in this part of the state, they recognize that probably about the 1880s, and they would replace some of the wood stakes with stone markers. Trempealeau County is pretty unique in that we had some townships where the original surveyors actually set stones. And I think that was because it's more in the prairie areas where they didn't have trees that they could cut down and make stakes out of. So they actually they'd maybe find a stone over here and move it over. Some of them were marked, some of them aren't, kind of put it in vertically, note it that way, and then that would be the marker. The trouble is, all our gadgetry electronic stuff is based on being able to take a metal locator out there and look for a stone. Nah, don't work that way. But it does work pretty well on a steel marker or an aluminum marker with a magnet in it. So we're able to, we put the steel in to make it last a long time, as long as we can, and also be able to locate if it should get covered up in the road or covered up by farming operations, logging operations, whatever. But the reality is if we have a maintenance program, we know if those monuments get moved, we know if they get damaged, we know our reference ties get moved or damaged. And that's really what I think Ann was touching on when the question came up. Why are we doing the maintenance, basically? And that's the reason, is because once the monument's in place, we've restored it, we've gone through the effort of excavating and finding the shadow of a wood stake, set a new marker exactly in location, and measure accurately to it, and we set the reference ties. Natural consequences and human interaction has a tendency to damage those monuments. We don't want to return to 1996, where the last real maintenance program, well, let me think. No, there wasn't a maintenance program. 1845 to 1852, all the corners were set, and then they just basically, through time and human interaction, a lot of them were lost or covered, and that was our job to find those. We found approximately 2,400 corners in Trempealeau County, and it was quite a process. As you can tell, anything that goes from 1996 to 2014, I think I said, it's a long process.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want to lose that effort that we put that time into, and money.
I would agree with that statement, based on my own personal experience, where when you were remonumenting, you located another corner marker for me, well, not for me, but for the cause, which for the land that my daughter has from me, reduced the cost to about 10% of what it was estimated to do a survey when she got the land from me.
Yeah,
Because that corner was now marked, and they didn't have to go 2 miles to find one that was official.
Absolutely. I've seen situations where having the government corners available, it's kind of a two-phase. You got the physical marker available to be used by surveyors and landowners, but we also put an accurate coordinate value, a measurement value on the top of it, so that surveyors can use their GPS equipment and walk right to it. Well, surveying, 99% of a surveyor's cost is time. If it takes less time, less cost to the client. I've seen situations where some surveyors require 5 government corners to be done. In some counties where they don't have a program and those corners haven't been restored, that individual has to pay the surveyor to do that. You're looking at a survey that could be in the open done for $800-900, probably being anywhere close to $5,000 to $15,000. And this is a cost savings the constituency of this county fortunately doesn't even have to realize, because they don't even see what would have happened if it wasn't for the
In my
the
case,
foresight.
this would have been 25 years ago, and the estimates for the survey were 8,000,
Yeah.
25 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So the question I have is the hearsay you hear about, if you have a fence line that's been there for 10 years, that's now, since you've cheated the fence line, say 10 feet, that's now my property because that fence line's been there for 10 years. That's a lie. You hear that
Yeah.
a lot.
Have you been talking to your attorney?
No, I have not.
Okay.
I just hear from different people that say it.
Sure. What you're talking about is adverse possession. And adverse possession is a legal term that basically says, in so many terms, that you may have rights to property you don't have title to through continuous use. So if you have a fence, let's say you built a fence and nobody said, wait a minute, that fence is not on your property, that's not the boundary. Through continuous use, you may have gained those adverse possession rights. The trouble with adverse possession rights is it doesn't give you title. It's a right to the property. And that actually follows through between various different landowners. If you sell your property to somebody, that right goes with it, because it's a property right, not an individual right. In Wisconsin, there's about 6 different aspects of adverse possession that do what I would call a good adverse possession case. 20-year time frame is probably the most important. So this fence that you're talking about is 10 years. The guy would probably tell you to get it off his property because it's only been there 10 years. 20 years minimum in the state of Wisconsin. There has to be a defined line, a fence, an improvement, something that indicates that it's being used by the adverse holder. It must be open and notorious, and that sounds awful ominous, but what it actually means is that you didn't try to hide the fact. You didn't go out there and put it up in the middle of the night, for instance, things like that. And then there are a few other less subjective requirements. But these all build a good adverse possession case that typically, if your neighbor doesn't agree with you and says, yeah, you're right, it's yours, you've been using it, I'm going to give you title to it or convey you title to it, they are elements that get litigated in a civil court case between you and the person who has title. There's a state law that requires once that goes to court and a judgment is made, then deeds have to be exchanged to make the fence the line. The difference there is now you actually have title to land that you had previously adverse possessed. And it's very, very common for people to think, well, I've used it for 50 years, it's mine. Maybe, but if that guy isn't going to give you title to it, it's going to have to be litigated. And then when it becomes litigated, a judge or a judge and jury will decide that for you.
Very interesting. A wealth of information in that corner, there's no doubt about it. So, any further discussion from the committee?
We got 2 minutes, and a prime example of that is some land we own in the center of Buffalo County, where we have been using since the 1940s an original logging road that went around the neighbor's property to get to our hunting land. When the new owner, foreign to the area, came in, we had a discussion, and he agreed with what we were talking about here. He could not stop us from continuing to use that for access to our hunting land. But don't try to make any changes on it.
I'll agree once. Yeah.
Okay. Any other discussion from the committee? So,
Mr. Chairman,
yes.
are we going to have a discussion about the surveyor contract and the placement of it?
If that's what we would like to have happen. I mean, that was part of the purpose of this, open dialogue. So, thoughts, concerns, questions from the committee? Or is it something you guys would like to address as to what you would like?
Well, I'd like to give just a brief overview of, where we are today and where we would like it to go. I mean, we can debate the past and everything like that, but just so everybody on the committee understands that when the remonumentation project was started, going through history, and we have all of the documentation in our office from the prior committees, our land records modernization coordinating position was vacant quite often. And the county at that time and all the players involved felt it was going to be detrimental to have the county surveyor still continue under the land records coordinator, because there was a resolution signed by the county board at that time for the county surveyor to fall under the land records coordinator. But because that position was being vacated a lot, and at the time there wasn't a lot of support for land records, because I think for the most part people just don't have a full understanding of it. It's a very complicated issues and stuff like that. So at that time, and Joe can correct me if I'm wrong because he was the county surveyor, was zoning and planning were its own separate department. Land conservation was its own separate department. Zoning and planning had a spot for the county surveyor to come and sit down there. So it just kind of just migrated into that area, and then just through time, it got absorbed. It got absorbed with the budget line item and stuff like that. And really, no one ever questioned it because all of us in land information were there for the same purpose. But with that said, now going forward, we all know that our current county surveyor may not be here forever unless he's got some type of magic that he's going to be around forever. But with that said, a lot of us are going to be here a lot longer than what Joe's career is probably going to go, or even the next person after him. So we would like to see that contract fall under the area of where our land information program departments are located right now, being land records, treasurer, register of deeds. Ann's presentation outlined all of that stuff, and we all fall under the common committee standing of exec finance and stuff like that. And so that's kind of where we are at with our discussions. Anybody else that can add to that? And there's things that we want to do with the county records also too.
Can you elaborate on the things that you want to do?
So Joe's records, all the historical county survey records and anything that isn't up to what's digitized right now, we would like to work with the county surveyor to digitize them and put them in some type of a program where it's going to be searchable, not only for people in our office, but then surveyors that come in or the general public. Right now, Ann and Tess created an app on our website that anybody, more than just surveyors, can go out there and look at a point that would be near their property that would be anything that is surveyed that is now digital. So there's more than just certified survey maps that are recorded in a registered deeds office. You have maps of surveys. Those are now can be digitally found on our county website. So we would like to work with Joe on all those other historical records, along with Joe and I have had conversations in the past about our town records for roads. We would like to be able to research those and get those in digital because a lot of our town roads aren't 66 feet wide. So for me, the person that's kind of the lead cartographer of the county, I got to set up our property tax database so I can not just maintain it, but I can accurately define people's boundaries and their acreage for what they're being taxed on. So that's one project I'd like to work on with Joe here in the future too.
I don't understand what the different, I don't understand, that work can happen regardless of where the contract lives.
If the current county surveyor doesn't have that contract, us in land information programs don't have a say on who the county would decide on that surveyor. So I would ask you, why is it important for that contract to be where it is?
And that's what I'm asking you. Like, what, I don't understand
Yep.
what the difference is about where the contract lives as far as your being able to work with the surveyor.
So right now, us in the land information departments don't have a decision on who that
Who
county
would be
surveyor is
hired.
and for the length of term. Should it be a year-to-year contract, or should it be maybe a 3 to 5 year contract? Because part of that certified survey map review, you know, if a certified survey map comes in and we don't have the review process that's set up right now, and it gets recorded in the register of deeds office, you know, Rose, as a register of deeds, if it meets the minimum recording standards, she has to record it. Then I'm obligated to take that survey, whether it's full of errors or not, and now I have to deal with the problems of setting up people's property, acreage and boundary-wise, which then could come to be a problem. So I've always said our certified survey map review process that we have right now is the greatest insurance policy of our taxpayers of this county that own land.
So am I to understand then the real reason or the real concern about this contract isn't the existing contract with Joe? It's with whom might be hired in the future and for what term? Is that really what the base of the issue is?
We're trying to leave people out of it. We're just looking at the position. So we're looking at what is the best interests of our county going forward today and into the future. What can we do and advise our county board members on where that contract, if we're going to keep it as an independent contractor, where some counties actually have it as a county position, where is the best place for it to go forward in the future?
May I speak to that a little bit? Speaking frankly, I'm concerned about the future of the county surveyor's program and the county surveyor's office, where it currently sits. I don't think it's any secret that the director and I don't see eye to eye on a lot of things, and the biggest thing and biggest concern I have is the surveyor's program and the office, the remonumentation program. This isn't about me. I know there's been talk and discussion, I've heard it through the grapevine here and there, that I'm an obstacle to the department. And in my opinion, this is the best way to release that obstacle to the Department of Land Management, is put me in a position with people who understand the focus of the county surveyor's office in that program, who understand the importance of it. If this was about me, I'd have been gone, I would have resigned 4 months ago. This isn't about me. This is about the program and the office. And at the end of the day, when I'm no longer working in Trempealeau County, I want the county to be assured that they have an individual in a department that respects that position, working for the county and its constituency. It's pretty easy to, I've also heard rumors that they're looking at an RFP or a bid situation in 2024. I don't know if those rumors are true. Quite frankly, all I really hear are rumors. I highly suggest and implore you, do not go to an RFP bid situation for this professional position. If you're going to do anything in the future, I would suggest you go with an RFQ. And for those who don't know what an RFQ is, it's a request for qualifications. Get somebody who's qualified to do this project, do this work, to fulfill these obligations. And then, if you're concerned about If I'm charging too much, then negotiate a price with a person you know can do that job and get somebody to help you do that job. Don't hire somebody because they got a good resume. Hire somebody who can do the job.
Maybe to explain things to you a little better, say on a lot of dead-end properties now, as they get divided, as we had a revision to make them 90 degrees, so we get enough frontage to make these properties, you need a surveyor who understands the laws and what is acceptable. You can't just throw a surveyor, because in our experience with the town of Unity, you corrected that surveyor's measurements 3 times, I believe, on the property up north, to make it accurate and acceptable, so that it protects the seller, the purchaser, and everyone moving forward.
I think I understand the need for a qualified surveyor, and I think the committee understands the need for a qualified surveyor. You're a qualified surveyor, but I'm assuming that anyone that we would look to, I like the idea of the RFQ, I like that thinking, but the request for, or is it RFB, request for bid, is that what it is? Request for RFP? Request for,
It's called a RFP, request for proposal, but quite frankly, they turn into low bid competitions.
okay, I see. Because in my mind, we would not be looking at just a bid or a dollar amount, but we would also be looking at qualifications. And if you have to be licensed to be a surveyor, correct? So just like any other position, you can get really bad people in the line of work, just as well as you can get good people in that line of work. And it is a matter of going through and looking at qualifications for sure. So I think, I mean, at least from my perspective, I think that the importance of the position is known to the group. I'm not sure where, I guess I feel like what you're saying is that the committee would be willing to hire anybody willy-nilly for the least amount of money. And I don't, at least on my end,
Well,
that's not what
I hope that's not the case. If it wasn't from experience of having seen committees do that, I probably wouldn't say that. I watched Eau Claire County hire a surveyor on low bid, spent 7 years remonumenting the whole county, and then only to find out later that they had to trash it all and completely redo it again with a different firm. They spent $700,000 on a remonumentation project that finished in 1982, started in 1977. 5 years, they remonumented the whole county of Eau Claire. Took us, how long? 17 years?
Yep.
Eau Claire County is still in the process of fixing that. They started in 1996, and they're still working on their problem. It hasn't been completed. I have in the past have clients all the time say, "Why are you 30% higher than the guy down the street?" I explain it to them. They go with the guy down the street because, quite frankly, money talks.
Right.
I mean, I'd love for that reality to be in everybody's minds every time we make a decision that has to do with finances and fiscal responsibility. But there's a fine line between fiscal responsibility and being responsible to get the job done properly. Like I say, if I hadn't experienced it firsthand, I would be the first person that would agree with you.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I just want to remind committee members that, you know, if you looked at Ann's presentation, you would see the importance of all of us in the land information departments, which includes an independent contractor and a county surveyor, on what it means to the program in a whole. And it's not necessarily us would be the ones that would be picking or choosing a county surveyor into the future. We would be advising our standing committee, which is exec finance, which, Dave, you're our chairman of that. And members, so they're just people like you, but we are advising our standing committee. If it remains in the area that it is, you guys don't have to listen to us at all. You're not our standing committee. So what advisement from a department or departments would you guys be receiving? That's where my sense in it all is, why wouldn't it be located in an area where it makes the most sense for the county going forward?
So I'd like opportunity to look at the PowerPoint further. The presentation was great, but like I said, I need time to wrap my head around what it all is. So just understand that I would like to take time to understand it. But one of the questions I do have is, out of all of the counties in Trempealeau County, how many land records, I know I'm not saying that technically right now, land information departments are separated from the land management?
It varies. Some of them are in the land information office, some of them are in a zoning office, some of them are the land information office department head, and the land information officer required by the state. So every county, every 72 counties is different. Some are full-time, some are 1 day a week, some are 2 days a week, some are county employed, some are contracted.
You're speaking specifically about the surveyor, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm asking how many, when we ask the question about where the surveyor contract should fall, I look back a little bit further from that, like taking a few steps back, right? And I wonder where land information itself should fall. And my understanding is that there are a considerable number of counties that have their land information department being overseen by the land management department.
And that varies too. We tried that for 4 years. It didn't work out for our county. And we just recently separated back into our land information office, where just here at the county, the importance of our work wasn't as important to land management. What we thought we should be focusing on wasn't what they thought we should be focusing on. So a lot of it falls under understanding, having people understand what you do and what's required. And but back to the state, it's different in every state. Could be just one person in a land information office by themselves, and the real property lister would fall under a treasurer. It's just different.
I could give you a little history on that if you'd like.
Sure.
When the land information program started across the state and the grant funding proposals, every one of the counties had to all of a sudden come up with a land records coordinator. And some of them looked at the register of deeds and says, you're going to be the land records coordinator. Some of them looked at the treasurer and said, no, you're going to be. There was even in some counties where they had an outside source come in who was interested in land records to be their land records coordinator. I think Trempealeau County actually had an attorney who was, for a while, was the land records coordinator, because in order to fill out the grants and get the money, you had to fill that position. So everybody filled it differently based on kind of like, okay, who's going to do the job?
Had to give somebody a title.
Had to get somebody attached to it. As time progressed and the benefit of land records became more and more obvious to different departments, it kind of morphed into, okay, now we really need to get somebody who knows how to do this. It's not just a figurehead anymore. It's somebody who has to take this money and be responsible for it and get these programs moving. And then a lot of counties went ahead and did a separate land records department with a separate funding source. And then they acted like the hub of the wheel. And all the other departments were like the spokes. And the hub of the wheel was necessary to get all the spokes to work in concert and to make this a viable, workable, affordable department. And in Trempealeau County, that's what they pretty much did. Once they realized there's something here that we can all benefit from and a funding source we can all benefit from. Other counties didn't always have that person who could be the responsible contact source for that department. So they would go to somebody who had a good land records background. Some counties, the county surveyor's office, and the county surveyor became the land records coordinator. And so the county surveyor's office basically incorporated land records. But the real strong land records departments are the ones who built it with a land records coordinator at the hub and worked from there. That's why you see such a disparity or a difference from one county to another. It's not like an elected position, like historically we always had to have a treasurer.
Right.
It kind of morphed into the county's needs. Does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I have a question. I know you had mentioned concerns about the surveyor's office going forward. Could you explain a little bit more about that, then how that applies to which department keeps the contract?
The concerns I have with the county surveyor's office moving forward are focused on the ability to continue to do that job as best as we can. Continue to do the remonumentation. It costs money. Departments with a lot of fingers in a lot of different needs have a tendency to take the funding from the whole department and shift it to other needs. My concern is the funding that the county surveyor's office has right now may be focused on another need one year to the next. We don't need maintenance this year because we need this more. The Land Records Department, in concert with the Treasurer's Office, Real Property Listers, the Register of Deeds, realizes that need. And I don't believe the focus would be to shift funding in the future. That's one of the reasons. And that's why it's not about me. It's about that office continuing to proceed the way it's proceeded in the last 27 years. That's probably my biggest concern. I understand that we're getting a new building soon. I've been watching it go up slowly over here. And my understand is that, and again, this is what I've heard through the grapevine, is that our director would like me to share a desk with the building inspector because we're both not full-time, and I see that as a problem. About every other week, I have somebody in who wants to talk with me confidentially about their problem, about their fence line, about their neighbor who built the fence line. And they feel very, very concerned when I have to sit in the hallway and talk with them, or I have to sit in an open office and talk with them. My understanding is Land Records can provide that space. I get this vision of a new office in Department of Land Management where I got to make sure I beat the building inspector to my desk, or I don't have a place to sit that day.
One thing to keep in mind, committee, is that the space for the Uniform Dwelling Code Inspector, we're not required by contract to provide workspace. So Joe's concern there would not happen.
I have a question for the director. Last month, you stated to this committee that you have not gotten a certificate of insurance from the surveyor, correct?
Correct.
Why have you not requested it? That is your job. That's yours. He is not.
That's part of the contract. It's responsible.
Yeah, you requested it. He
Responsibility,
doesn't have
and
to
this
give it.
committee, I believe, wanted to make that request.
Yes, but you should have did that a month after he signed the final contract. And you have not spoken to him since this big blow-up. That falls on you.
Where are we at with certificate of insurance?
Do you want one?
He hasn't. He just hasn't been asked for it. He doesn't have to volunteer.
But it's in the contract that he has to provide it, so it's been asked for.
The contract, ma'am, says I have to provide insurance, so much for this and so much for that. I'm sure you've seen those certificate of insurance. There's a lot of private information on those things. And I'm reluctant to just hand it out to somebody who can make copies of it and hand it to anybody who wants. If the committee chairman would like to see my certificate of insurance, I'd be more than happy to provide it for you.
I believe that's what the contract states that we're supposed to do.
I don't think so. But, we can easily read the contract and find out, Kellen. At any rate, I'd be happy to provide that to somebody on this committee, and I would prefer it be the chairman.
I think we need to put this before Rick to determine that, whether the contract says you need to, or in your opinion, it's to personal to bring to us. I think Rick should make that decision.
Yeah, I've had to provide for my own business to customers a certificate of insurance to get paid before. It's not that crazy, and I actually disagree. It's not all that much personal information. It's pretty basic for the most part.
Contractors have to provide
Correct,
proof of insurance
and that's
all
what
the
it
time.
amounts to. It's and it's all redacted. If you ask your insurance company, and that's what I did, say, can you send me a certificate of insurance for this particular business? And they put all that, it's tailored directly to them. It's not crazy to ask for, and it is not that personal. And that is something that would go into our file for you,
Well,
is
that's,
the way I would see it.
that's kind of subjective, whether it's personal or not.
Well, I think that.
Somebody
that-
can ask me for my email address and, well,
I mean,
anybody who's
you're-
been online lately realizes if you put your address, phone number, social security number online, what may happen.
Well, it's already there. So,
Like I said, I would be happy to supply you a copy of my certificate of insurance.
I think that would be good.
When
That'd be a good start.
When
I
you
would
requested I
cer-
buy insurance, I bought insurance.
Yep, I believe
I
you
would
did.
thoroughly agree. My 40 years of experience is, you want to get paid, you want to get the job.
Correct.
Show us the insurance before we give you
Yep.
the job.
I'll be happy to do that.
That's been my experience with my business.
Agreed. Yep.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
just want to bring it back down. I mean, that's, again, this isn't why us in land information is here. I mean, this is completely debatable between the committee and the independent contractor. That can be had at a different time. We're here to talk about what we in land information want to see the surveyor go to next. And that's it. That's the only reason why we're here. And the other part is why we're having this discussion is we're coming up to budget time, where departments need to start working on their budget. And I know Ann is wanting to sit down and figure out how this is gonna work in our land records budget, and also going forward with exec finance and the other departments that are involved in this, because the current contract right now is on a one-year contract. It's done. So we want to be able to formulate how we want to be able to go forward in the future here. That's why we're talking about this today and not wanting to have to further delay this, because this has been debated now for a long time. I personally don't see an issue with it. It's just moving a contract from one spot to another in the best location it's going to serve the constituents in the county. We don't determine that. The exec finance is going to determine it by us advising them.
Okay, so, Dave.
If I can, based on that, I've heard several good, well, for lack of a better term, arguments for a change. Where's the argument for keeping it in this department? I haven't heard that.
You know, it really is. It's like, there's multiple ways to fillet a northern pike. There's multiple ways, and Ann alluded to it throughout the state. People do it differently, and none of them are wrong. They're just different. Ann mentioned some counties have the land records as a division within Department of Land Management. That was the case here. It's really up to you as a committee how you would like to see it. There's not a wrong way to do it. It's just different.
Verge?
Don't ask me.
Well, you asked for an argument to keep it in the office. The argument for me would be is that we're trying to do zoning. We deal with the zoning violations that are sent over. Joe helps me with that. He reviews the CSMs. You know, those are all filed in our office. They have to do with zoning. He's making sure that they're, you know, adhering to the zoning ordinance. But if we're going to disregard the zoning ordinances in the land use planning, then I guess, you know, we can move on.
I'm not arguing to zoning, but the next question in my mind comes, how is moving to a different department a detriment to that activity? Why could that not continue?
Well, it can.
Okay.
It can. I'm just saying, it's more convenient, and the zoning ordinances are put together by this office
Okay.
in our department,
Okay.
as are the land use plans. supposedly.
I guess that's the part that I don't understand. I feel like these departments are not that separate. I understand that there is separate work. I'm not minimizing or saying one's more important than the other, but they're all, in one way, shape, or form, interacting with one another. Or the land records that we're creating are created based on zoning and other ordinances that come from the Department of Land Management currently, right? So I guess if today the question is where does the contract live? All right, we can make a decision on that, but then I think that what gets put on the table in my mind is maybe we need to look at the overall structure. It's not about people getting along together and playing in the sandbox, you guys, about whose department is in which, falls under which leadership. It's about being professional and working together overall anyway. We shouldn't be making decisions about splitting departments, merging departments, moving contracts to different departments because we're not getting along. Those are not valid reasons for making changes.
I think a lot of it is our concern with communications and making sure things move forward in the land information program. I really don't have anything to say about any other department heads. That's not my place. I worry and am concerned about our work. And everyone seems to be looking through that and making it a personality issue, and that's not the case.
Well, frankly, it came up at the same time as personality issues, so it's hard to separate them. The issue wasn't brought forward before.
There was no communication before, and I didn't think the committee understood the role the county surveyor plays in other offices, just not one office.
Sure, yeah,
So,
no, I definitely can appreciate that.
So
Yep.
there was a lot of communication that was lost there, and we just want to make sure we go forward on the right foot.
Sure.
I think the reason this was brought forward by us is because at the time when you opened Joe's contract back up, or we're looking at it, nothing was ever said to us. And that's my same concern if you're going to be hiring a new surveyor. You want to look for qualifications, but who are you going to look for to determine if that person is qualified? Do you know as an individual that that surveyor is qualified?
I would have no idea.
Right.
Right.
And if you didn't ask any of us before when you were talking about opening up the contract, will you ask us? Or any future members of this committee, will they look to us for that information?
When did we open the contract up?
You were talking about doing it. I don't know if you actually did.
You, as a committee, you made a motion to get multiple prices for the
Right.
2024 contract.
Right.
And that has been consistent with the county purchasing policy.
Correct.
And that hasn't been followed in the past regarding this contract.
Yeah, but when all of this came up was way before the request for bids. I guess it doesn't matter. As far as it does matter. I don't mean to minimize anything, but looking for taking action going forward.
Correct.
I guess the expectation today is to make a determination of where the contract lives.
Does not have to be. Yeah, you had asked for some time to review the presentation. Randy had mentioned that to me as well. In an effort for transparency and good discussion, I think that's a fair request. I think that, if they would like that doesn't seem unreasonable, and we can talk about it again in August.
My only concern is budget. I
Right.
have
So-
that'll be done prior to,
Yep, understood. And yet, it's going to be, if it's not in your budget, it's going to be in his budget. And if it's transferring a budget item, it's not necessarily an issue in my mind. Exec Finance Chair, David could, correct. I mean, the budgetary amount likely wouldn't change. It would just transfer a line item is how I would envision it.
I agree.
So, whatever dollars here moves over to here.
Yep.
So, I think it's a fair statement or a fair request. I would like to have time to review. Because you've added information that hadn't been taken into consideration before, right? So I want to do justice to give that consideration. when it comes to the budgeting process, I understand the importance and that we're in that frame right now. But I do think we can move a budget from one department to another department. I would ask that Mr. Cornman involve you in, and I'm sure you probably have, but just to be sure that there is involvement with your department about consideration for that budget, just because then you'll have had input for it.
So can I request that anything that's being put out for request for proposal be halted until a decision is made on where the contract is going to be?
At this point, the request for proposal was more for a budgetary number. And not to say, but this committee has always been of the understanding, I'll speak for the committee, and that the plan was never to go for lowest bid necessarily. The quality means more in this, more than in this instance than in a lot of contractors, I would say. The quality is really the biggest item, so.
The request for proposal, request for whatever that is following county process. It has nothing to do with anything, ill feelings or any of those things.
That's correct, but I just want the committee to understand that there are other departments, and for one, it does quite a few requests for bids on projects that we work on. So she's fully capable, if that has been talked about that we don't know about, she's fully capable of taking that on. Just want people to be aware of that.
I mean,
There might be a general misunderstanding on the requirements for request for proposal. If you're buying 10,000 paper clips, you want to get the best deal. If you're buying a bunch of copy paper, you're looking for that best supplier. When you're looking at professional services, I don't believe you have to do a bid process for professional services. The highway department uses engineers for their highway work on a regular basis. Typically, the process is they pick the best 3 qualified engineers for the process, and they negotiate with their number 1 person they want to do the job. If those negotiations don't result in an agreement, they move to the 2nd person, and so on until they get down to the 3rd person. So to get the best price in paper clips, get an RFP out there. To get the best engineer, surveyor, professional, attorney, whatever, RFQ, get the best individual. I don't think it's county procedure to go RFP on everything like I'm hearing.
Sure.
Would it be possible that we would include these 4 other departments besides land management in that decision on a surveyor in the future?
Yeah, I don't see why that couldn't happen.
Because they've got more information and understanding on what a surveyor's basis is versus this committee, I would assume.
So as you state that, Tony, then again, it comes back to the argument is why does it need to be where it is right now?
I
know,
understand with you, but we're a committee.
So I think maybe slow rolling this at the moment is probably going to be a little better way to go forward. With that in mind and having discussed this for over an hour already, would someone like to make a motion to bring this back in August or?
Yeah, I definitely would. I'll make a motion to review the information that's been provided and bring it back for further discussion and action in August.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Any other discussion on that motion?
Who seconded that?
Randy did.
Not on the motion.
Okay. Well, if something else, if it's quick, we'll do it.
Yeah, I would just request a copy of your PowerPoint too. It was kind of fast.
Please send it to the whole committee, and then we can dig through it. Okay, so at this point, we will look to revisit this in August after reviewing your presentation and invite the same back for discussion again. And hopefully then we can find a longer-term future, one way or another. So, so all in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. We will dig into that a little bit more in the meantime and talk in August. Thank you, guys. Item number 9, I think it's number 9. We have a public hearing that's been postponed since February 1st regarding a conditional use permit for a new cell phone tower on Genesee Finks land. Mark, can you update us?
I received an email on June 19th. It was shortly after our, within a couple weeks of our last meeting, and this is from Mr. Sean Hebstead. He's the Director of Site Development. He says, please consider this email as an official request to withdraw the zoning application for the cell tower on the Fink property. This site has been put on hold and may be canceled, so I do not want to waste the county's time until U.S. Cellular makes a decision on either moving forward or canceling. If they decide to move forward, I will submit a new application to you. So basically, it's a dead in the water at this point, I would say.
So no action necessary. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
No action. No, I thought if this was officially applied for, that if we did no action, it
But if
became
they've
approved.
withdrawn it, do we?
So don't we have to
But it-
deny it to make it
That's
go
what I thought
away?
Rick's statement was last month, that we had to officially deny
We
it.
didn't know they were going to withdraw.
But if
Correct.
they
but I-
withdraw, that changes it, I believe.
I'm not legal counsel, but I guess I think
mean,
Rick's decision was
If we
for-
deny them, if we formally deny them, nothing really changes either, though. They still have to, so it's a
Yeah.
horse apiece. So if someone would like to
But
make
wouldn't it
that
be just on
motion.
our record to protect us, though, from that? Birch?
I think if we deny it, we have to do it in writing, where if they've withdrawn, that doesn't require you to make a decision.
Okay.
Could we do a motion to accept the withdrawal, to have something in
That
our
would be
paper?
fair. That
documented
could be in
for
the
us.
meeting minutes.
Right.
Okay,
I'll make a motion that we accept the withdrawal of the application.
okay, motion made and seconded, and all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item 10, UDC ordinance discussion, possible action. I know we received some feedback from a few townships, and
We did not receive very many responses from our communities. It was disappointing, but it also may be a sign that this is not a burning issue with communities. That's kind of how I take it.
Yep.
I don't know how you guys take it, but that's how I take it, and,
I thought
know,
that there
and-
could have at least been one other person that responded, so that there could have
yeah,
been
and of course,
one way
of
or
course,
another.
yeah, of course, the options, 3 communities said they wanted to see it stay the same. 3 other communities voted, wanted to see it changed. But what is really more telling to me is the lack of response from the other municipalities. And I take it as that's more of, there's not a strong burning interest in making changes.
Can you remind me why this came up as an option, as a discussion anyway? I don't even remember anymore.
We had a committee member request that a policy be reviewed, and it's good to review policies over time, and this is, we do have as a county, a higher level of uniform dwelling code inspections compared to most communities. And that was, I can't remember when that was, early 2000s. So it's not, from time to time, it's worth reviewing policies, but.
For sure.
But, yeah, it was from a request of a committee member.
so, yes, with no real guidance from our survey, what are the wishes of the committee? No changes at this point, or does someone want to make a motion to choose an option? We can go either way.
My opinion is option 2 is going to open a can of worms. Because if you put our inspectors are qualified in several areas.
Mm-hmm.
We put a permit out there for inspection only, and now we send an inspector out there that's qualified for HVAC, framing, insulation, and he sees a violation, but he's not by permit supposed to inspect that. Where does that put the whole liability issue? So I see that opening a whole can of worms.
So, let sleeping dogs lie.
Right,
Stay with
that way.
option one.
And to me, it would be either option one or eliminate auxiliary buildings totally. That
Okay.
would be mine.
Okay. Do we have, well, do we
make a motion
want to
to-
make a motion to that effect? To, or you?
effect?
Well,
Or you don't have to make a motion. You just don't have to take action. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to do anything.
Because we aren't changing necessarily.
There's no proposal, you know, that we're not at a point to change code here.
There's no
You don't-
reason to.
If you don't want to change it, you don't have to take any action.
Okay. So, at this point, unless there's a burning desire from someone here, I think we leave it, no action taken.
I don't feel there's support here to make any changes.
I'd agree with that as well. Yeah, that'd be my, okay, so with that in mind, we'll move on to item number 11. County Conservationist Operations Report. Haley, what do you have for us today?
Hey everyone. Okay, so we'll move that a little closer. I'm short. So projects are on the way. We have, I think, one left to bid out, and then one that's kind of in the works. It has to go back to the drawing board because it didn't pan out as I thought it was going to. It's an embankment that came up was constructed with sand. So I don't know how it's still standing. So back to the drawing board on that one. But only one left to bid out. We have a couple that are in construction phases right now. So running like crazy and staying busy. So, which is good to see. And then we also have a cost share payment, which Amy will do, I believe, after this. So we're humming right along. We're already halfway through summer, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah.
Then we have all of the bond funds or the land and water funds that we had for 23 all allocated, so we will not be transferring any to any other neighboring counties like we have in the last, I believe, 2 years, and then also in 2018. So I think that is a major highlight for our department. We're keeping all those funds here and using them to put them on the ground here. So I am overjoyed to say that and, really move forward with using those full funding sources from the state. County cost share, we have about 70% of those levy dollars actually allocated, so we have about 30% of our funds, even the ones that we carried over from last year. So total, we have 70% allocated at this point for all the projects that we have. So that leaves us some nice wiggle room for any kind of change orders. So if a project changes on site, we can do those change orders, which is helpful because I know there are a couple that I've talked with the landlords are like, I think we're going to need to work with this, or something else came up where, we're going to have to do a little bit of a change order and work with those, just how the land is laying out. So that is good. I think we're sitting really well this year on the projects and the money we're going to be spending on those projects. So I don't think we're going to have a lot of carryover, unlike the last couple of years. So we're sitting really well this year. With that, we're starting to look at projects for 2024 already. So we are looking for applications. We are continuously talking with landowners to try to get them involved in our cost share programs and looking to see what else is out there on the landscape. I think one of the big things is that the county is doing more a diverse project repertoire of grade stabilizations, waterways, and the manure storage closures, and that word's starting to get out, and people are really starting to call and say, hey, I saw X on that property, I have that same thing, can you come and look at that? So actually getting out there, and I think the newsletters really help, and so it's really good. So we actually do have a good handful of 24 applications already, and I get a couple phone calls a week of, what can happen. So we're getting a list started, and if you guys have, people that you talk to that they have any kind of erosion problems or old manure pits, that's one of the big things right now is old manure pits that have not been used. We can get them abandoned and help cost share that because it is a liability on their property, and then if they, down the road want to sell it too, that doesn't have to be an issue when they go to sell. So that's that option out there.
Tony?
Yeah.
Are grants staying the same? I mean, availability and funding is, for next year will be the same? So
It
hopefully we can.
should be. I can't speak for, the state budget at this point. That's still all, in discussion, and the legislature, I can't tell you if they're gonna cut or fund more, but from what I have heard is that things are going to stay fairly level at this point. And as far as the county levy, if we can still carry on with what we have been receiving the last few years, then we will continue with that. So at this point in time, everything still seems to be fairly level on what they're at as of right now. So, which is good. I think right now we have for where we are with experience of staff, I think the funding sources that we have is actually really good. We're not going too big where we can't figure out from a staff perspective on how to get all these projects done and design them and everything. So I think we're sitting actually really well with the experience and the staff levels that we have. I think in the next, say 3 to 5 years, we could potentially start looking at increasing that because we will have the staff, so long as we keep our staff. And we will, just keep building from there. So I think we're sitting really well. Let's see, what else? Looking forward, still working on all those nutrient managements, getting that reported to DATCAP. We are at the end of July, so I believe it is July 25th through the 27th is the UW Extension Science Camp for grades 1 through 5, or it might be K through 5, one of those. And we are helping out with that for one of those days, so I will be out there doing a presentation, I think 3 or 4 times, to the variety of students about aquatic invertebrates and the water quality and how that all relates to, our county as a whole. So we're pretty excited about that, trying to get out and, do a little bit more with the youth education as well. So we're collaborating with them. Another thing we're gonna get started here is start ordering for tree and shrubs for 24. So this is kind of we cycle one and then we just keep rolling. So if you have any suggestions on what you would like to see, or if anyone has any ideas, please let me know. I'm looking at maybe doing a little bit more of a native selection this year. So if you have any thoughts or anything else you would like to see, or something we had in the past, let me know, because I'm always open to ideas and see what I can find. So we're getting there. And then the last thing here is that there is a new web mapping system, and I've been playing around with that, that Land Records put up. And I think they had it up for like the last week or 2. And that website is very quick and very easy to use. So if you haven't been out there, I would replace the old web mapping that you have probably been used to with the new one, because it is very slick and it is quick. So you don't have to wait for it to circle and circle to print anything or anything like that. So I want to just give a shout out to that and saying that that is a great website, and it has been very useful for the last 2 weeks. I've been able to whiz right through. So
Cool.
Questions?
Yeah. This probably don't even pertain to that, but does the county is it the health department, or would it be the parks that test like for water quality issues at beaches or stuff like that? Because I've heard some people asking, is this beach open, or can
Health
we go here?
Department does that, yeah, and they put out notices,
They're
yeah.
supposed to.
Yeah, and they, when Peatrick Park Beach has issues, then.
They allow, put a notice up or
They
whatever.
give read notices and usually post them up, so.
Okay.
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, very good, Haley. You got a lot going on already.
Yeah,
Still.
it's humming right along, so it's good.
Okay. Well, excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Next on our agenda is cost share payment requests, and a new face for the committee is here. Amy?
Good morning, committee members. So in your packet, you would have received the payment request for our grant program. I did change the format just a little bit just for my purposes. So the original contract is for the $9,530, And then there was a change order, so it brought the new contract price to the $10,330. So the pay request, which is the final request then to pay this, is the 70%, and that total is then $7,231. So this is to certify the manure storage system closure. And then, so what I'm looking for is a motion to get this approved so we can get it paid.
Okay. Entertain a motion from the committee?
Or is there any
Or
questions?
questions? Motion to approve, Aldera. Second by Larson. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried.
Awesome, thank you.
We got them paid. Thank you, Amy. Next up, Department of Land Management Director, Operations Report.
Yeah, just wanted to let everybody, a big thing, Amy's been a great help starting here. Amy started, when did you start again?
I think it
A
was
month
the
ago
day
today.
after our committee meeting, I want to say.
Yeah, so Amy has been hard at work, and she's been doing an excellent job learning the job and then also being thrust into our county budget process. And so I feel like we're ahead of the game. She's added some excellent expertise and has been great with our process. So we've got, we've probably spent the second half of June building the background of the budget. We'll spend more time this week. And one of the challenges is PTED and ELU are the first and second of August is when they meet. So we're the first, you guys will be the first committees to approve department budgets in August. And so we're working hard to pull that together and to get that in advance of that meeting, a week in advance for you, so you have a chance to look at it. But Amy's been a great help, and so we're on it, yeah.
Welcome to the team. Okay, anything else from Director's Report do you want to make note of?
No, not
in there.
On the next.
Okay, next item up for discussion is department staffing / organizational changes, discussion only. This is something new.
Yeah. We had recruitments out for county conservationist. We weren't successful, so I took a fresh look at things, and really ultimately we have the skill sets within the department with current staff to fulfill things. And one of the things I looked at is how can we allocate job duties and to meet all the things we need to do, and to kind of build on current staff strengths. So with some job description changes and things like that, we have the ability to achieve multiple things within multiple goals within the department, not just in conservation, but also in parks and economic development. So one of the things, and again, I have a lot more like detail work to do with the job descriptions, but I think that org chart shows it the best.
Yeah.
It does, it didn't?
No, it didn't.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
Yeah, the memo came through.
Yeah, I apologize for that. I'll pass this around a little bit, and but essentially, it was a before. I had a before current org chart and then a proposed one. But the bottom line here is this is I know that's far away for some people, and I'll pass this around. But essentially, we would be realigning some duties and filling the county conservation position internally, and having our parks and conservation specialist move to 100% full-time conservation specialist position, and that would leave us with a vacant parks position. So Then we would kind of revamp that Parks and Conservation Specialist position as a Parks and Recreation Coordinator. And that's we had requested at PTED and got approval for this Activity and Outreach Coordinator. We would not pursue that any longer, and we would build those duties into this Park and Recreation Coordinator. So it's kind of redefining some job descriptions, and so we still retain all our conservation staff and at levels very close to what we've had over the last year or so. And then we get to achieve some things in Park and Recreation as well. So the process, I'll have more details on this at the August meeting as I work on this in July, the details on it. But essentially, we wouldn't be asking for new positions at all anymore, and sometime this fall, we would recruit for that Parks and Recreation Coordinator position. So I will hand this around, and I again apologize, I don't know what happened there.
Could you resend?
Yeah, I'll
please?
resend it.
Haley, how do you feel about restructuring? Or how does the rest of the team feel like that's doable work? And
Yeah, I think it's a doable work. I can't speak for others, as I have not discussed with others on that aspect, but I would assume that Mike had discussed with the other individuals. But yeah, I think it would be a workload that would be sustainable.
I did have discussions with each staff member impacted, and they were all on board and excited.
Excellent.
Good deal.
Do you need something from the committee?
At this point, I
No,
think it's
no.
just
What
updating.
Rick Niemeyer has asked is that I fill out the project initiation form, and so I'll just essentially be writing up a more formal memo and attaching the revised org chart and revised job descriptions, and that will go both to PTED and this committee because it involves, and I guess ultimately you guys would be approving conservation changes and PTED the other changes. So it's, but it works out pretty good. It works out pretty well, and I think it pretty much would help us to work more effectively.
I like the creative thinking.
So then Rick would be aligning, I assume, more duties, increase in pay, or more liability there to equate, or so?
Who are you talking about?
Well, what Corp Counsel or HR would be giving these positions new classifications?
There may be reclasses.
The only kind of reclass that would come into effect here would be the Economic Development and Tourism Manager, because the only significant, there would be, the Park and Rec Coordinator would be reporting that to Dave. So his position would have a new duty. All the other position changes are either lateral or the county conservation position. We're tweaking that, and it's not a significant change there. So the county composition would essentially stay at the same grade, and we'd have two conservation specialist positions. Essentially, it's a lateral for Reed, and so really the only reclass portion, financial potential change, is for the economic development manager.
Okay.
So it finding a creative way to achieve same things, and I actually, with the three divisions there, I think it really would make us more effective on the conservation side, and then we get to achieve some things on the Parks and Recreation side too. So I really like the way it's set up with this.
It's pretty logical. Yeah. So, like it. Verge.
So, Mike, we used to be zoning, planning, surveying, and land conservation, and that was the division of land management. So we are no longer following that organizational chart, or we're not addressing land use and zoning, or we're changing direction of the department?
No, we are not. We're still doing those things, yes.
Well, that chart to me looks like we're doing parks and tourism and
Yeah. That's what we're doing now.
economic development, and
Yeah, yeah.
and we really aren't touching on zoning and planning too much.
It's on the org chart, yeah. I call it development services, because it's just that's the term that I'm using, but essentially it's broad in nature. But we could change, if the committee wants to change that to planning and zoning, we can do that.
Well, that's your position then, or that's Mark's, or?
Mark and Verge's are under development services here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the zoning is still 100% part of the department's work.
Wow.
Maybe just the title isn't very defining. I guess.
Descriptive,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, yeah. It's broader. In our annual report, we've used development services because when we report on our contracted services things, that brings that into play. Uniform dwelling code stuff, that comes into play. Those are contracts. Those don't get included in on staff organizational charts because they're contracts. So if the committee prefers that to be communicated as planning and zoning, I'm fine with that.
Any strong feelings from the committee?
I think I'd like to see it include the planning and zoning nomenclature.
Okay.
Zoning and development services, is that okay? A little more descriptive, but still.
The development piece is broad.
It's a horse piece for me, so we can, I'll amend it, I'll bring a change for the August meeting, and then if you guys want to change it there, you can.
Sounds good.
I thought I understood that through this potential reorganization that we wouldn't be hiring a conservationalist.
We wouldn't be. We would be fully staffed. If Reed moves over.
It's moving people around.
Okay, so where it says vacant, that's just you already have somebody you would be putting in that position by reallocating.
Yeah. And I think what I have down there may be a little bit, I just didn't move the names up, so essentially, yeah. I need to get you an updated copy, but essentially, Reed would be 100% conservation. Currently, his position's probably about 25%, so he would be 100% conservation. So it's the main thing is Reed moving to conservation, and then having a vacancy for parks and recreation.
Okay.
And I'll email that out. I don't know what happened. I saved that a million times.
Verge, did you want to see it, or
The
Haley?
department received, I shared that with the entire department in an email update along with other topics. So this is not a new topic for any staff.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else in that? Otherwise, we'll get some more on that in August. Future agenda items. Item 15.
I have one. I liked that email that Verge passed on about Clark County encouraging like revitalization of the state's farmland preservation program. And I think that just talked about how they sent, like an encouragement on to the legislature or to, increase the rates for it. And I think it'd be a good idea to see that program reinvigorated in the county.
I don't believe I saw that email.
Yeah, it came.
Did I?
It was a while ago.
Oh, maybe I
got it.
okay, I probably.
It was a resolution that Clark County had passed in regard to farmland preservation, state updates.
Yeah, and one of the things with the state budget, the legislature approved it, and then it goes to the governor, and he does vetoes, and the legislature adopted that budget late in June, and then the governor has a certain period of time to do those light item vetoes, and so you don't really fully know what the state budget is until the governor gets done with those. So I think, for people that follow the counties association that follows the budget pretty closely, they mostly know what the budget is, but you don't really fully know. And I know that there was some, the revision to the Farmland Preservation Program, it had passed the Assembly a couple of different times over the last couple of years. And then there was another push, and it seemed like it had momentum in this current budget, and I don't, maybe it was part of the budget, maybe it wasn't, but that's one of the things I'm gonna be researching and asking for once we get the fully final detailed. I think the proposed changes for farmland preservation were good. It indexed the payments for inflation. So you don't get, right now the payments are very low, and so it indexed it. Again, these proposals come forward, and then sometimes certain parts get modified. So I'm looking forward to see the details on that.
So maybe it's past the time when
It might.
taking-
Yeah, we got reach out to DATCAP and a few other of our sources and see where that's at.
Okay. Okay. Anything else for future agenda items? Hearing none, our next regular meeting date is scheduled for Wednesday, August 2nd. That's to work for everybody. Stick with our regular. And that should conclude today's meeting. I'll adjourn at 10:30. Thank you, everyone.